treatable and so beatable. But if you don't get checked, if you don't put it in the kind of the routine that you just go and you talk about it and you make sure your buddies are doing it and your the men in your lives as well as the women in your lives, because women know to talk about that. And this is just, when it comes back to this, is men's cancer and men's health, it's as important.
So welcome everyone to our fourth and final series of our Men's Health webinar. We're delighted to have you here tonight. You've just heard there from Neil Richmond and his brother Graham, how important it is really to talk. And we get men moving tonight, but we also get men talking. It's part of our, I suppose, our prostate cancer series, but it's also part of the Men's Health Forum Ireland. Get men talking, get men connected, and talk about health in whatever way we can. So for tonight, we're talking about, you could hear Neil and Graham talk about their own realization that within their family and their family history, they would be at risk of certain kinds of cancer. And that's really important, I think, for everybody to know. As the Marie Keating Foundation is a cancer charity, we're very mindful of that. And part of our, our health promotion is around cancer prevention, making cancer less frightening by enlightening, and detecting cancers early. We have a program called Your Health, Your Choice, and that is an educational program and sometimes a campaign to help people to learn more about, your health being your choice. It can't always be helped in terms of hereditary cancers and cancers in families, but we can always do something to help ourselves. And we know that, unfortunately, cancer is the #1 cause of death in Ireland, followed closely by heart disease. But we also know that around 30 to 50% of cancers are actually preventable with healthy lifestyle choices and with early detection and treatment. And we also know, the good story here is that more and more people are surviving cancer in Ireland. There are over 200,000 survivors of cancer. So that's really good news. We're talking here about, the Healthy Ireland framework, about your health being your choice in many ways if we can, and we've got to make it that. So, the 7 pillars are diet and maintaining a healthy weight, physical activity. We're going to learn a lot about physical activity tonight. Alcohol limitation, smoking cessation, being safe in the sun, looking after your skin. Cancer screening for men in particular is around bowel cancer screening, and vaccinations. When we talk about vaccinations these days, it's all about COVID, isn't it? And have you had your vaccine and which one have you had? But I suppose for the purposes of this, we're talking about vaccinations in young lads for HPV to actually eliminate eventually head and neck and deep throat cancers. So, we had we started this Men's Health series during Men's Health Week, which is June 14th to 20th, on the lead up to Father's Day. I know Peter, I'm going to introduce Peter shortly, and Peter is part of the Men's Health Forum Ireland as well. So we all got very well connected with ourselves and started sending out those messages. But just to remember, this just wasn't for Men's Health Week. It is for all year long. It is for our lives. And we need to get that message out there more and more as we go on. We deliver this message all year round, but we also heighten, I suppose, our campaign and awareness around prostate cancer, particularly during Blue September. So you'll hear more about that as we go. So today is Get Men Moving with Peter Jones, and he's got 2 very special guests with him tonight. So we'll be talking to Peter shortly. But one thing I would like to say, I suppose, before we move on is we all acknowledge that it isn't always easy to find the time or motivation for physical activity. And we also take into account poor choices when we're busy, sometimes relying on meals of convenience, and the high percentage of alcohol consumption in the country. And the number of men we know in Ireland, who are obese has risen in recent years, and it's estimated that it will rise further. But, you know, we have some really positive stories tonight to hear and to encourage and motivate men. So taking charge of your health not only improves your physical and mental well-being, and we're going to hear more about that too, it also greatly reduces your risk of heart disease and multiple cancers. So it can be hard to take the first step to better health. So I'm going to introduce you to Peter Jones very shortly, who will motivate you to consider just that. Okay, so I'm Helen Forrest, and I'm Director of Nursing at the Marie Keating Foundation. And tonight we're actually we're on here on Zoom, but we're also streaming on Facebook. As an attendee, we don't have the ability to speak to you, unfortunately, but we would love you to participate in the webinar by asking some questions. So there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And if you click into that and type in your question, press enter return, we will get those questions and we will answer them for you at the end of the session. So please do avail of this opportunity. It would be great to hear from you. And, you know, it's also a great opportunity, maybe not to have to ask a question, face to face. You know, you can hide behind the screen here and ask that question if it's something that I suppose you have had reservations about in the past. But do use this time and we will answer as best we can. So this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available on demand for anybody to watch, and we will certainly push this out later on in the year as well. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the Marie Keating Foundation and the services we offer. So we have, as I said at the beginning, like, you know, a lot of our programs are around health promotion and survivorship, but here I'm going to concentrate a little bit on health promotion. We try to get, you know, education in as early as possible, and we have a schools cancer awareness program, which is a fantastic resource. It has been, all our services obviously have been challenged this year because of COVID and our ability to be present, you know, to the youth of Ireland. But we hope we'll get there again back in September. So this is a program around educating young people about, you know, different types of cancer, which may be pertinent to them. And in particular, I would talk about testicular cancer here, because testicular cancer is very common, not very common, but in the age group 15 to 34. And young lads don't often realize that. And it's a prime opportunity for us to be able to tell them that. Skin cancer as well is another cancer that we talk about a lot with young men in Ireland, and just that whole messaging around being safe in the sun. We have a community outreach service, again, which has been very challenged during COVID, but we have 3 mobile units around the country. And I must say, this is a service we miss at the moment. It's a service for the community. We can find ourselves in fairly remote areas. And that is, I suppose, a service where it can be quite opportunistic for people to come on board and ask those questions or worries. They may see us parked somewhere, maybe even by a beach, and they may want to ask us some questions. So if you see us out and about, hopefully from August onwards, do come and ask us that question. We'd be more than happy to help you. We do have corporate wellness webinars, and our Associate Director of Nursing, Bernie Carter, leads on that. And again, there are programs on many different types of cancer, signs and symptoms, and what you should look out for and what you can do about it. Within our community work, we have some projects running, and some of those are in social inclusion at the moment. So we work with refugee women and men, you know, teaching them about the screening services that are available and signs and symptoms of particular cancers and what they can do about that. We work with Pave Point as well in the Traveller Community Group, looking at quite specific cancers, for example, skin cancer and breast cancer in women and men. And we have a surviveandthrive.ie website, which I would encourage anybody who maybe isn't, I suppose, keen on the online services at the moment. But this is you know, a site that you can tap into to find out more about different aspects of cancer and survivorship. That could mean like psychological support, where you'll find that, how you manage some of the physical things that happen in your body, and where you can get support in Ireland. We also have a couple of programs that I'd like to maybe home in on specifically here. So I talked about Survive and Thrive. This is an 8-week program for people who have survived cancer or are known as survivors. So they've been diagnosed, they've had their treatment, and they've come out the other side. And this is a really nice program to help people self-manage themselves back into a place where they find themselves in control again. We have a program specifically for men starting on September the 14th. And my ask to you would be, if you know somebody who you think could avail of this service, please tell them about it. They can go to mariekeating.ie to the events page, and they can actually register there, and I will actually talk to them individually about that program. I'd love to see more people signing up for that. And this is for men, and we've specifically opened it up for men because there are specific needs that can be openly discussed within that program. We also have a positive living program, and we've been running that for women for a number of years now. But this year, I'm really delighted to be able to say that we're opening up a program in September for men with metastatic cancer. This is for people living with and beyond cancer, those who have found themselves with a cancer that spread to other parts of the body. And we would love to be able to help you. It's a very positive and reactive kind of program where people actually learn from each other. They become empowered by each other. And it's a nice place to come and meet. I know Jim is going to talk a little bit about that later on, where the connection is really important and has been more important than ever during COVID. That program starts on the 30th of September and will run every month right through to December. And if anybody has an interest in skin cancer and melanoma, we have a podcast running at the moment. It has 8 episodes. I think we're moving into episode 4. That can be found on our website or where you listen to podcasts. Podcasts have become very popular now, haven't they? So, yeah, so that's up and running as well. Okay, so some of the campaigns we've done have been quite impactful. You may have heard about them, but they've been running year on year. Our I Gave a Shit campaign in 2017 was encouraging men to talk about bowel cancer and maybe changes in their bowel habit. Really important messaging around bowel cancer, tongue in cheek, and it worked really well. Year on year, we run prostate cancer campaigns. Every September is Blue September, and we will run a campaign quite specifically for Get Men Talking, Stand Up for Your Prostate, Heroes of Hope, and they're all available on our website. And this year in May, you may have heard Davy Fitz talking about giving bladder cancer the red card. Very simple messaging around see red in yellow, go to your doctor. So red, amber and green, red in urine, blood in urine, go to your doctor. So nice, simple messaging that gets across. You can see PJ Gallagher there. He, again, you know, if you heard Lurkin Brennan's webinar a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the hook. And the hook is often associated to how you can draw men into the conversation. And that for us is sometimes through comedy, but also through sports celebrities, and it works quite well. Here are other campaigns that we run. We certainly, so Get Men Talking, we talked a little bit about that. Skin Cancer Awareness Campaign runs from May to September usually. We look out and we look at the weather and you think, you know, Irish people say, well, we don't get that much sun. In actual fact, it's really hard messaging at the moment because it rains, it shines, and it hailstones all in one day. And it's really difficult, isn't it, to get that clear message out there, be safe in the sun. And I'm really pleased to say that we're doing some work on men's look good, feel better. You'll know for years and years that these programs have been running for women. And it's often about skin care, makeup, hair care, nail care. We're doing it for men, and we're doing one in September. So I'm really pleased to be able to say that. And we may use some makeup too. We won't we won't leave it out. So there's much more on its way. So do tune into the Marie Keating Foundation for all of that information. The webinars, the 4-week webinar series is available here at mariekeating.ie COVID and Cancer webinar. I talked about the Male Survive and Thrive program on the 14th of September and our Male Positive Living for men with cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and they're living well with their cancer, 30th of September. I'd now like to introduce our keynote speaker, Peter. Peter, we're delighted to have you here tonight. Thank you so much. Peter and I are members of the Men's Health Forum Ireland and are well connected in delivering programs to men in Ireland. So Peter is Sports Development Officer with Waterford Sports Partnership Group, and he has a real focus on men's opportunities, you know, funding, cycling, older adults, and he coordinates the rural sporting hub in West Waterford. Peter is a PE teacher, and since being in Ireland, he has undertaken coaching roles in, you can see there, basketball, camogie, GAA, rugby, and soccer. So a very popular person, Peter. And I know you're passionate about making positive difference. And one thing I'd like to congratulate Peter on is being part of the steering group for Men on the Move, which is a campaign that is now running nationally. I mean, that's a huge incentive and a great achievement. So well done, Peter. And just before Peter comes on, I'm going to say hello to Eugene. Eugene, you're very welcome tonight. Thank you so much for being here too. And Eugene has a lovely story to tell us, a really positive story about the impact of Men on the Move for him. I'm not going to steal it from him. I'm going to let him tell that story himself. And then we have Jim. And Jim is a prostate cancer survivor. And I've talked a bit about cancer already, and we've heard, you know, a little bit about prostate cancer in the video and the importance of talking and connecting. Jim was diagnosed in 2021, this year actually, with prostate cancer. So, you know, it's one of those really difficult years where, you know, the whole kind of pathway and support services for cancer has changed enormously and has not been available. So Jim, we would really look forward to hearing how you've managed through that COVID pandemic and how you've come out the other side of that. So I'm going to stop sharing now, Peter, and I think you'll then be able to share your own screen. Thanks, Peter, and you're very welcome.
Hi, everyone. So I've got my mascara on, as you suggested there, Helen, so we're all good. We're okay.
Great.
Yeah. So as Helen gave the introduction there, so this is my plan for the next kind of 40 minutes with you. So key thing with Jim and Eugene, as you said, they're going to give their own kind of stories. I'll give you a bit of a background about myself as well. What we're trying to look at then is just the reasons why we get active. Like, I think one of the key things that I'm going to ask you to do is just reflect. If you sit down at the moment and just kind of take 10, 15 seconds, like the 3 questions I'd say to you is like, you know, from your physical activity journey, where have you been? So you're thinking back 10, 15, 20, 25 years, depending on your age. So where were you? And I suppose the next question on that front is where are you now? I think everyone's on our own life cycle. We all have different challenges and we all have different things that are going on within our lives. So I think it's where were you? Where are you now? And the big question, which really links in well to kind of, you know, the Marie Keaton Foundations with your health and your choice, because your life is your choice, is where do you want to go? And I think Jim and Eugene are 2 fundamental examples of literally looking themselves in the mirror and saying, what do I want to do in my life? You know, where do I want to go? How can I make my life better? How can I be healthier and happier? So I'm really looking forward to kind of hearing what they say to us as well. If there are any questions in the chat box, kind of make sure we can put it in, there's no problem. And I think that's what I've put there just at the top left of top right of your screen there. Like, do you want to change or do you want to stay the same? If you're happy with where you're at, fantastic, no problem whatsoever. But make sure that you continue that and you continue your own motivation for being happy and healthy. If you're not, you have to do something about it. There's no point in kind of making excuses, because it's your life, it's your body, it's your choice, and you make the difference on that. And the little kind of one on the bottom right-hand corner there, the procrastinators meeting's been postponed. This is the most important meeting, is you about your life. So I think that's what we're trying to say when we're trying to get men moving. My own background, that was me before COVID, and that's me after COVID there, just the 2 little photos. I work currently with Waterford Sports Partnership as a sports development officer and hub development officer. I'm exceptionally lucky with my job. I get the fun stuff. I get to think of ideas and plan programs with the idea of getting people out and getting them more active. I've been in my current role for nearly 15 years, and I've definitely evolved, as we all have, from my experience within that. What I try and make sure that we do now is we look across trying to put myself in other people's positions and listen to other people about what are our unique characteristics to make sure we can be more physically active and healthier. My background is my family. That's me as a little kid with my mum, my dad, and my sister, just on a beach out in Wales. We do have beaches in Wales. And then that's me at the moment as a father of 3 kids and a husband to my wife. My own father, from my own family background, my father died of age 59 from pancreatic cancer. So typically of men, like he was a little bit unwell for maybe 6 or 9 months. We thought he had a fantastic tan on him. And then he went into hospital, and within 10 days of him finding out he had pancreatic cancer, he died. And I will always look back at that from my own perspective and saying, like, if he'd have actually looked after himself and actually gone and checked himself, then he might not have been saved, but I could have got I'd have taken an extra day, let alone an extra year or an extra 2 or 3 years. I think that's really important. And I've been more aware of when I was in my 20s, I'm indestructible. I can do anything. But all 3 of my father's sisters died from cancer. So that's all of his family passed from cancer. And then my mother's brother is a prostate cancer survivor as well at the moment. So I have to mind myself. I have to be aware of the situation that I'm in within my family. And those 3 little beings that are sat there in my back garden, I need to make sure I'm healthy so I can provide them with the life that they deserve. And I think that's really important for me, as well as how I look. My job in here, so I'm very lucky, like going all the way down from doing balance bike training with young children, that whole life cycle of physical activity. Some of you might have known about the Sean Kelly tour that went on in Waterford and carried along in 5 of the counties within Waterford. We do a lot of walks, going out and using nature. We've done fishing programs, and I'm exceptionally lucky that I get to hopefully make a positive difference on people's lives. I make mistakes in my job, absolutely, but it's trying to make sure that I connect with people. And I think that's the big thing. And that's what I've really learned with men. And I think Jim and Eugene are definitely going to touch on that, is the connection that getting out there and meeting people can have on you, making sure you are getting active. And within sports partnerships, I know with people across the country, and every single county in Ireland has a me, and they have better versions of me. So please get in touch with the local kind of sports partnerships for different programs that are happening. Helen says about the Men on the Move. I was very lucky back in 2015 to be on that steering group. There was 8 pilot counties within Ireland, and now that program's being delivered in all 32 counties within Ireland, and it's evolved as well. It hasn't just stayed at our original kind of program. What I like to do myself, I like rugby. Ironically, well, I'm Welsh, which probably helps. Ironically, that photo there in the bottom left is of the British Lions tour out in New Zealand. So there's no support in the British Lions tour at the moment. And I think even for me, getting out and about, I met my friends for life there, going across from school and college, but they were guys I met when I traveled who had similar interests. And that social connection and social health has been paramount for me. And I see those guys 3 times a year for Rugby International, where we make time to see each other. And I think that's really important, and stuff that we've kind of mentioned through the COVID pandemic as well. And what I now do is I coach. I was very fortunate when I was young. I played a good level of sport. I got paid for playing sport when I was through college, which was great. But with that, it means my body is broken. So you asked me to go for a 5-mile run on a road, I can't do it. You asked me to kick a ball with my child, I can do it, but I'll be in pain. So one of those things that, because I can't take part in much physical activity without being in pain, and because I didn't mind my body as a youngster, I coach. So that's my kind of involvement as well, which is great from that kind of social side. As you can see there, that's my father back in his days. Believe it or not, he's 14 there. He's a giant. And then when I left college, I became a physical education teacher, just because I was passionate about trying to make a change in people's lives. And I think part of who I am has been ingrained in myself as a teacher. So I could see exactly the benefit that I had on children. Like, they're hilarious. Like, the fact is, if you give them time, they'll give you the world. If you don't give them time, they'll give you grief. And I think that's very similar to us within life with each other. And I think Eugene and Jim, who might talk in here, one of the things that I try and do is be personable. Like, it has to be a good environment for people to make sure that they want to be physically active, because men, generally, we're pretty crap at making sure that we get out and look after ourselves and mind ourselves. So I think that's really important then as well. And then what I did in this is not great shakes, just to try and better myself a little bit. I did a health promotion master's while I was working with children, which was probably the worst decision in my life. But I think I did that just to prove to myself that I could still achieve. And I think part of that is I challenged myself, and I can't challenge myself physically anymore. So I try to do that academically. I know Eugene as well. He's an amazing man for challenging himself every single week with his steps and his gadgets and seeing where he can go. And he's got a daily calendar of everything he's done for the last 3 years. He's phenomenal. I can't do that. So I have to make sure I challenge myself in different ways. So that is myself. As a result of this, and I'll talk about this later on about men and what our journey is, what I do is I struggle with time. I think one of the barriers when we look across at that is my body, time, and my children. My family are fantastic. We've all families if we're lucky enough to have them, and it's great. But with that, sometimes we prioritize our family over ourselves. And I think I was probably guilty of that, as a lot of men and women usually are. And I think I reflected myself and kind of said, look, I need to make sure I prioritize my own health so I can give my children a better life. And I was lucky with my job that we came up with a father and child gymnastics program. So we ran that within Waterford Gymnastics Club, and fantastic facility down in Waterford Gymnastics Club. And this week, they've just launched another father and child gymnastics program after what we did 3 years ago. So I'm really pleased with that sustainable aspect. But that did two things. One, you got 16 fathers in a room doing gymnastics, looking at each other, going, what are we doing here? And as Helen said with Lorcan there the other week, it's the hook. If I'd have done a gymnastics program for men, I'd get no one. If I do a gymnastics program for men with a child, the hook is my child will benefit from this. So we've got 16 gentlemen who are making sure they're out and about and active. And the two things that really happened is, one, that we saw a evolution of men's flexibility and posture, and we got to chat with each other, which was great. And the second thing, I suppose, on that is you got to spend some quality time with your child. In the days now where everything is so hectic and everyone is so manic, the fact of spending 1 hour of quality time with your child is huge. And not only that, we're role models. Like, as parents, I would always look at across, I'm a role model for my child. If I eat poor food, if I don't exercise, and I don't carry myself in a mannerly way, how can I expect my children to be healthy and exercise properly and be respectful? They won't be. So that was a huge benefit for us, and something that I would treasure that I've got to do with my daughter, and I'm very lucky with that. And what I do have is just a quick little video here for you that I'm just going to look at here. 2 seconds, sorry now. So this should Waterford Sports Partnership. We're delighted to partner again with Waterford Gymnastics Club for another father and child gymnastics program. The aim of this program, as you can see, is to try and get fathers and children to do some fundamental movement skills in a fun. This is the problem with my my internet, you see. Helen, have you any luck at all on
I'll try there for you if you want. Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah, so I could throw it into the chat box for the link, even if you wanted, just to put it up.
Yeah.
If you shared it on your screen, give me 2 seconds there.
Just go back to, oh yeah.
No problem. This is the joys of being live, ladies and gents.
There's always a challenge.
That's it, yeah. I just put the link in there for you into the chat box there, Helen.
Okay.
Was it full flow too?
I'll have to stop sharing and then to get to the chat box, I think. Okay. Let me see if I can.
No problem.
Sure.
Waterford Sports Partnership, we're delighted to partner again with
You
Waterford
see that?
Gymnastics Club
Nope.
for another father and child gymnastics program.
Okay.
The aim of this program, as you can see, is
Bear with me 1 minute, so and I'll see if I can.
As Helen's kind of sorting that out, ladies and gents, as well, I think, as I said, it was one of those things that I spoke at the start there about just reflecting. I was saying, where are you? And I knew that, as I said, I couldn't do that, couldn't do general kind of physical activity.
Waterford Sports Partnership, we're delighted to partner again with Waterford.
No, I'm afraid I can't. I can't seem to put it into the share.
No problem.
Will I play it anyway so that people can hear it? Would that make a difference, or?
What I might try and do, here you go, 2 seconds. I'll try and do it myself here. So we can cut this out, can't we? It's always there as we kind of go. So
yeah.
2 seconds here. So see if in a unique way, stuff that you can do with parents that they can do with their children when they're at home. So even simple things like wheelbarrows, like piggybacks, just to make sure we improve our core strength and we have a bit of fun and we have a bit of crack at the same time. The other aim of this program at the moment is to make sure that we learn the key fundamentals of gymnastics. So we're looking across at trying to do 5 core skills each week. So as you can see, we're trying to get forward rolls and getting our fathers coaching our children at the same time to make sure this is a little bit sustainable. The atmosphere in the first session, as you can see, was just
fantastic. Like, dads coaching their children and children coaching their dads, coming across in here to kind of cartwheels and utilising the expertise and the skills of the premises in Waterford Gymnastics Club. This is our first of 4 kind of programmes. So the next kind of 3 weeks we'll continue to build on everything that our coach Tony Gray is kind of teaching to the 12 fathers and 14 children involved. And our handstands are going to be fantastic next week. As you can see, if we listen to our children, we won't go far wrong.
Welcome back to this series of skipping videos in collaboration with the Waterford Sports Partnership.
You're on mute, Peter.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah. So as you can see there as well, like even from us as coaches, what we try to do is make things sustainable. So when we went home, adults had the ability to coach their children as they went back, which is really important. So that's what I did, just as my evolution with my physical activity from my age and my life cycle. What I'm going to ask you to do now is we have Jim. So Jim Farnan has been a member of our Men on the Move program, joining kind of COVID was a big aspect for all of us. And without me kind of waffling on too much, I'm going to pass you across to Jim, who's just going to tell you a little bit about his own story.
Thanks, Peter.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jim.
Yeah, hi. So first of all, before we start, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Jim. So I want to thank Peter for giving me the opportunity to share some of my own experience over this webinar, as well as Jennifer and Helen. When Peter came and asked me, I was a bit apprehensive about doing it, but then I thought, well, sure, I've gone through this, and by sharing some experiences, it may help others. So to go through it, basically, I just have a small bio, and I'll go through, it'll take me about 5 minutes. So I'll just read through it. I'm more comfortable at reading it than just actually sitting here saying it. So I'm Jim. Yeah, I'm 60 years of age. Always been active in some form of sports over the years. However, more so since my late 50s. During my working life, never suffered really any medical conditions. Always had a yearly medical examination. So always good health, fit, right? Being retired made me always felt the need to be more active and getting involved. And this is where I found Men on the Move to be one of those areas where you could get involved without being actually tasked, challenged, or criticized on something you may not be able to do. Men on the Move is based on the concept that if you can do it, you can do it and do it good. If you have difficulty doing it, well, you ease back a bit and you do it in your own time. So I've been part of Men on the Move for a number of years. Prior to COVID, we always exercised twice a week, used our ability to exercise in the Waterford Rugby Club, and it was all outdoors, and there was great interaction with people. But unfortunately, then came COVID. So this was part of a process of where we had to move over to Zoom. And while being part of Zoom, towards the end of 2020, through not knowing of anything, my doctor asked me to take a blood sample test, as he thought there was something unusual in the previous one. Without going into too much detail and having to go through things, I found myself that in January 2021, being diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that was on the 7th of January. By the 14th of February, I had been to Cork University Hospital and had a procedure done over 3 days, and the prostate cancer removed. It was the opinion of the specialist at the time, and with my own opinions, that it was the best way forward. So while that was a success and has been a success, the challenges past that were now to come. And it was those challenges that I found were based on two things. The fact that I was now kind of semi-isolated because I had to look after my health. And the other thing was that I didn't have much interaction with individuals or with people on the outside world. So that's where the Men on the Move program came into being a great support for me. And in saying that, it was all done over Zoom. So twice a week, we were able to get together, have our little exercise workout, and then have our little chat rooms. So we were put into men of 4 in each chat room, have a chat, slag Peter about soccer or rugby, have our own little banter. Lasted about 5-10 minutes, but it was an outlet that I didn't have up until then. So now that we're back out and about. It was nice to get back last week into, as I call, regular normal society, and where that we can interact with each other in a way that is social distancing, still doing the things that we do, doing it to the best of our ability. The problem that I find now as I'm in recovery is that in doing the exercises, some of them I can do and some of them I can't do. But with Men on the Move movement, it doesn't matter. We can do it as we please. If it's too difficult for us or we have an issue with it, we can step back. Nobody points the finger and says he can't do it or she can't do it. We can step back and do it at our leisure. If there's activities that we really have difficulty in doing, there's always alternatives. And through my recovery period, I have to compliment Peter and his team, because I did have difficulties in doing some exercises. I even had difficulties in doing prescribed exercises post-prostate cancer. And Peter and his team were able to put together a plan for me. They sent me a video. They sent it to me personally so that I could actually proceed and do the best I could. And as I said, it's great now to be back out and about with people, out in the community more so. The community, I suppose we say, community of men that need exercise, that need to move forward, and looking forward to going on. Hopefully it'll last, and hopefully that we'll all be better people based around this. So that's basically my story.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim. So, and as I said, the key thing, I think you should take a big pat on the back as well for yourself. Like, you made that choice to make a difference in your own life. And I think one of the things for us is that we were trying to help you. And I think that's a key thing when we're going forward. And it comes back to what Helen said before, it's your health and your choice. So that's really important for all men to make sure you make that decision. This is our kind of not just Men on the Move. I think this is kind of a life cycle that we look across for me as a man. Like when we're this age, like we've no barriers to activity. I have a 1-year-old who's running around the house outside there, and he's crazy. He's just runs everywhere, climbs on everything, does his squatting technique is phenomenal. I can't even struggle to sit down in the toilet, and he's there with his backside on his heels for about 50 minutes at a time. So this is one of the things that we have no barriers. We get out, we be active. And I think we're very lucky on that kind of front that at that age, we go and be active and our bodies are great. Then when we get maybe into our primary school years and later kind of teenage years, is that we start to take part in a few events and we start to be physically active. Sometimes we're a little bit cool. Barriers. Maybe some people, when you're playing team sports on that front, you don't like them. I find that sometimes within Ireland, your colloquialisms is for the GAA. In Wales, we're very much rugby orientated. I think it's really important to make sure as parents for that age group, we find activities that they like and they enjoy. Jim mentioned it, that he felt welcome in Men on the Move and he didn't feel under any kind of pressure. And that's really important for children as well, because if we can set people on the right path at the start, then that makes sure they get a long life of physical activity and hopefully health. Next one, we get into kind of our teenage years. we might play some sports. People that don't like team sports, you know, they might play some individual sports, or they don't play anything. And particularly now you go on computers. So their barriers, all of a sudden it's like, you're too cool, or I've time, or I've exams, I've boyfriends, I've girlfriends, I've families, etc. It's kind of going, what is the motivation? At that age, as a teenager, myself, I knew nothing. I didn't have a clue. I can reflect as a 44-year-old and say I didn't have a clue, but at that time I thought I knew everything. I was really lucky. I played a lot of sport and was very physically active, probably because of the support from my parents and the availability of physical activity opportunities locally. I had a golf course 700 meters from my house. I had a soccer pitch was literally 500 meters from my house. I had a lit run up and down my village, and I lived in the valley, so it was like this. So at least I managed. Going up was hard, but going down was all right. And again, it's kind of like that motivation. Why do we want to take part in physical activity? Then we get maybe to our college years, etc., getting a little bit older, we start to compete. Not everybody likes to compete. And some of the big thing for us is compete against yourself. Eugene is phenomenal at this. He's brilliant. You know, he always looks across, doesn't care about anyone else, cares about himself. I think that's really important when we look across at our physical activity journey and our own health. And I would always say this to you, if you've children or looking across at people of this kind of age, make sure they compete against themselves. Just because they're not as good as somebody else, then this is where a lot of people are kind of dropping out, and particularly men on that front. Then we maybe get into our 30s, we maybe take up some social running. Our bodies aren't good enough for sports, so you do two things. You take some social running or walking, or you do what I did, and I coach. Coaching, fantastic. Social health, brilliant. Physical health, we don't run. We don't do any activity. We don't do any mobility work. We don't do any activation work. So our bodies start to seize up a little bit on that front. So men they start to run at this age. And then we probably get to our 40s and 50s, and it's women. And then we get a little bit older, and I do all the older adults work. It's women. And then it's women. And I think as a journey for men, we really struggle. And I can say it myself, after I stopped playing sport about 33, 34, we do nothing. You know, and you have to reflect and look, we're in a micro journey across our lives. That, yeah, when we're first born, as you can see the two little boys in the top left, everyone runs. We run everywhere. Whereas some days, even with me in my office, I spend the whole time sat at my desk. So I have to plan. I have to make sure that I'm looking at how do I make sure I can get physical activity into my lifestyle. And it's making sure that you can change for that, which is really, really important. So that's the one question I'd say to you. One of the things we look across, not just Men on the Move, but generally in men, and Helen, I'm sure you have this, so we struggle to capture men 35 plus. We struggle with that hook, as Lorcan has said previously, and we struggle to make sure we promote it to them. So why men as well? This is really important for us to know. Helen, these more up-to-date stats than myself, is the physical activity levels. We're struggling generally. You know, we have some guys who are good with their physical activity, but our obesity level and overweight, which then obviously leads us at a more higher risk to cancers and heart disease, as we all know. But we need to do something about it. It goes back to, it's your health and it's your choice. Suicides in men, something I've been affected by with my friends and my group, and it's brutal. And that goes back again, I think, to men and talking. Jim mentioned it as the social aspect. And I think that's a big thing with Men on the Move, that when we look across at Men on the Move for us, it's actually physical activity is secondary to that actual social aspect, because together we're better. And I think even with Zoom, I hate Zoom. I don't like it, but I prefer that face-to-face. But as Jim said, at least we could have a little bit of a catch-up and a chat. My wife would be going out 2 or 3 times a week for walks with her friends. I go nowhere, and I'm pretty sociable and I enjoy physical activity, but I do very little. So I have to look at myself on that and look across at what are those motivators for me. And I think one of the things that here is we are all different. Doesn't matter if you don't like GA, if you don't like walking, if you don't like rowing, fine. You might row, you might play tennis, you might hike, you might play table tennis, you might like swimming, you might like hiking, you might like canoeing, kayaking, whatever it is, find something that you enjoy. Hopefully with somebody else, because it'll give you more motivation, but find something that you do enjoy. Okay, I'm just going to try and play this video here. Let's see what happens. Sorry now.
One of the best programs Waterford Sports Partnerships has delivered in recent memory has been the Men on the Move Fighting Fit program in Dungarvan Boxing Club with Killian Walsh. Phenomenal program where the boys have really embraced the idea of just how fit boxers need.
same issue, I think, isn't it?
To be. What we've done from that is Killing has taken through some simple exercises and just looking at some of the aerobic strength, but also their core strength and their fundamental movement skills. And as you can see from these videos as well, the lads are punching, they're skipping, they're improving their coordination, and they also get to have a little crack off Killing the ring as well. If you want to join us,
I think one of the things, even from that, my reasoning for showing that video is that when I said to some of the Men in the Move guys, we just started doing Men in the Move, I said, we're going to do some boxing. They looked at me as though I was crazy, like, oh, and I don't want to punch the head off each other. But I think they really enjoyed it. And we got 4 or 5 guys that went sparring. It's not fighting Conor McGregor-esque or anything else on that. It's making sure you get out into a community and you challenge yourself, you motivate yourself, and you do it with others. And that was some fantastic work that kind of happened on there. What I was going to do in here is just ask you kind of like a couple of questions, but I will ask you to reflect. I said the 3 questions again is, how active are you? As I said, I do this myself. I try and do it on a monthly basis. The first day of every single month, I'm going, right, how am I getting on? Each week, I sometimes look across and go, where am I at? COVID, for example, that some people really struggled in COVID for physical activities. Others flew by. There's been a lot of positive stuff that's come from COVID, like my TV's there, Joe Wicks, 20 minutes in my lounge. I had all my kids at home because I was homeschooling and doing everything else. I couldn't leave the house, but I could do 20 minutes with Joe Wicks when one of them might be asleep, etc. So I have to plan my life to make sure I can get some physical activity in there. If I don't, not only do I not get as physically active and I'm not in as good a shape, I'm grumpier, I've less energy, and my kids definitely see I'm a worse father. And I'll put my hands up on that if I do not make sure I get that physical activity in. So I have to make sure I plan it as well. My motivation, some people is their children, some people is themselves, some people is just because they enjoy it. And then your barriers, you cannot overcome your barriers to physical activity unless you know what they are. And a lot of people, as we procrastinate, etc. from there, write down your barriers, say, look, this is what I want to do. This is why I can't do it, and then overcome it. And that could be a discussion with your wife or your husband or your partner, whoever is with you, to make sure that you can increase that physical activity. One of the programs that we run, I said, I'm going to see if I can, I'll see if I can play this one. This is a good video. So excuse me in advance, just while I try and find it for you. So now then, here we go. Hopefully this will work for us, ladies and gents.
My name's Pete Jones. I work with the Waterford Sports Partnership, which is a subsidiary of Sport Ireland. Basically, we are coordinating the Men in the Move programme for everybody in County Waterford, and we deliver this programme in a number of locations throughout the city and the county.
The Men in the Move programme gets guys out, gets them training, gets them meeting other men, just having a good crack, and they can improve their fitness, and it works for all levels of fitness.
When I heard that this programme was about to take place, I was pretty interested because a lot of the time men's health is not thought of that much. Women are much better getting into groups, and so I was adamant that I was actually going to be part of it, and I tried to bring some of my friends along as well.
I think the biggest thing that kind of gets guys coming back each week is just the laugh we have, really. It's a great social aspect where we're always out walking, no matter what we're doing, no matter what venue we pick, we're always having a crack. Rain, hail, whatever we're in, it's always a bit of fun. Guys are chatting about it. Current events, stories from the weekend, whatever happens, it's a bit of fun. And then we're getting active while we're doing it, so you wouldn't even see the hour fly by.
I suppose the reason I got involved in Men in the Move, I saw it advertised, but before it came along, I was a couch potato. I was over 16 stone, I was on diabetes medication, I was on high cholesterol, high blood pressure medication, and I was struggling to go up the stairs. And after the first 6 weeks, instead of struggling to walk up the stairs, I was running up and down the stairs.
Well, I felt initially I definitely was overweight, and I wasn't anywhere near fit enough or anything. So I just needed to lose a few pounds and just get fitter, and it seemed an ideal opportunity.
The lads are feeling happier, they're going out and doing more, and yeah, they might have lost some weight, but what other than they just got more energy, they're happier in themselves, they've got the zest for life back. And it's great to see a difference in lads from our youngest lad is 22, our oldest lad has been into their mid-60s. So it's great that everybody just comes together as men, and instead of meeting in a pub and having a pint, like we'll actually meet up, have a chat and we'll go for a walk. And so basically we're kind of, social and mental health is making sure that physical health is at the forefront as well.
And it's an hour a week that I just forget about everything. Right, just clears the head completely. So from a mental health point of view, it's brilliant because it brings you back. You forget about all the worries or all the things at the office are, and you start from scratch. And that's what I find absolutely brilliant. Apart from, like, I wouldn't I don't go out drinking, or I don't go, so I wouldn't, so I meet a bunch of guys and we get to be good friends and we have a chat. And we might talk about things that we wouldn't normally talk about, kind of health things and that sort of thing. So it's brilliant, that's really why.
We've done 14 programs, and even for those 14 programs, we've changed it. We've evolved as a programs which would adapt to what the men want. And that's the key thing, making sure we talk to them and we find out what they want.
There you go, thanks for that. Eugene's there, we've stolen his thunder already, haven't we, Eugene? So to come back into here now. So
that's a great video, great motivational video.
It is, yeah, and I think, and like, it was great, and we talk a lot about men on the move, but one of the things that I said is, my job, I have to find out what men want. There's no point me saying men on the move's great, because everyone's different. Like, we just had Men's Health Week here, and Helen, you mentioned that previously, and we did a lot of stuff on Zoom, so you can do it in your own. We used to talk about barriers, it's saying, oh, it's time. Well, you don't have to travel anywhere. You can do it in your front room now. It's not as good as being there, but you have to make sure you overcome those barriers. So Men's Health Week this week, we went fishing. We did Men on the Move, as you see in the RSC. We did some tennis. We did rowing. We did yoga. We did some Muay Thai. So there's lots of different activities that we as a sports partnership and sports partnerships across the country are offering for men to make sure you can get active. And it goes back to that key thing that Jim mentioned previously. It's creating that environment and that atmosphere where men feel safe. No, I'm okay. I can come in and I can actually do this, and I can meet other men, and I don't feel daft, and I don't feel kind of under pressure, because they're nice. They're like me. And I think that's the key thing. There's a lot of stuff there that you can see what the lads say. You can kind of pick and choose a few of them. Some of the quotes that are on there. And I think a lot of this is guys didn't realize that they could achieve what they achieved. In Men on the Move, we look across at weight and we look across at a mile time, but that's irrelevant. That's not really that important for everybody. It's about making sure that you meet up, and that's the key thing of that social aspect. And these are the photos that you look at here. You look across in that, what do you see? I see smiles. I see guys enjoying themselves. It's like school. If you enjoy something in school, or if you enjoy your job, you are going to succeed at it. So this is the key thing for us as individuals and for men, making sure you're doing something that you enjoy with like-minded men. So that's really, really important. I've spoken a long time. I do apologize on that kind of front. Eugene's going to give us a quick chat in here. Some of you might have seen Eugene's an international superstar now. He was in the Independent there last week, just given his journey with Men on the Move. And I've known Eugene for a good few years now. He's a phenomenal human being, and he's just very, very driven. And what I love about him is the fact that he reflects all the time to see where he is at and what he can do. So Eugene, I'll pass across to you, my friend.
Hello, everybody. Okay, I'll give a little bit. I won't stay talking too long. It was the Men on the Move for me. Again, as you saw in the video there, I was 16 stone, going on 18 stone. Happy to sit down and go home from work and sit down and just eat and snack all night. But it came to a stage where you look in the mirror and you're just not happy with what you see. And I came to that stage around 2015, 16. I said, I got to get out there and do something. So the Men on the Move came along, and the first night we did a kind of a weigh-in and all that, had a chat. And I think Peter said, yeah, we're going to run a mile now. And I said, what? I can't crawl a mile. Don't talk about run a mile. But by the end of that 16 weeks, I think I was after knocking 4 or 5 minutes off the mile from the first night. And it kind of took off from there. And I'd say for the first 3-4 programs we did with Peter, we always talked about getting together and moving on ourselves and doing a bit more. And eventually we did. And there was a core group of maybe 10. And we met twice a week, even when the program wasn't running. And it was just a camaradereship, and everyone pushing each other to do the best they could. And, again, just having a chat. Like, when we meet in our own, we do maybe a half hour kind of exercise. We don't kill ourselves in our own now without someone pushing us, right? But we go out for a walk. So we do a half hour kind of bit of physical exercise, and then we go for a half hour walk and have a chat. And you never walk with the same person. You're always walking with someone different, and they're talking about different things. It could be something that happened at home or something you want to get done, or an appointment with a doctor, and then someone says, "Oh, do you need a spin?" Or, you know, everyone's willing to do that little bit more. Even come Christmas, we'll meet up for a drink, and it's the same 6:30 to 7:30. We're going home at 7:30. That's our hour. So for us, the 2 hours a week, it's like a doctor's appointment. My wife often jokes with me, say, "Oh, you can come home from in the move, but you can't come home any other evening. You're from work." Because I'm a bit of my job is my hobby. So, you know, I never go to work. But I never go home either. That's the problem with that. I didn't do a lot on Zoom because I could spend 4 or 5 hours during the day on Zoom at meetings and all that. And the last thing, it's very hard then at kind of 6, 7 o'clock to go back on and do. Now, I did a few just for the chats. But what I did during the lockdowns, I started kind of walking. So I set myself a goal of doing 10 miles in 2 hours. And I think the first day out was around 2.5 hours, and I got back to 1 hour 54. But again, I'm my own worst enemy because I try and push myself to do a little bit more. And, you know, a fella like me in his mid-40s mightn't be the best thing of them all. But look, I highly recommend Men the Move. My next trip is, and I'm trying to with 3 years, and it's one of the reasons I went walking. I thought, oh, I will go back to Christmas. At Christmas, I broke a toe and I put out my back all in one go. And I put on nearly a stone weight, and I couldn't wait for everything to settle down. I went back, trained again in February. But one of the things I suppose really was, there was a new Men the Move Zoom one starting up. So it kind of gave me that little push. On our own, we won't do it. You have to have that little push. You have to have someone with you. And I planned last 3 years. I haven't got it last 2 years. So hopefully this year, I plan to go hiking in Alaska. So I hope to hike up at Glacier. So that kind of pushes me to keep a little bit fit as well. But yeah, you can't beat meeting the lads, doing the bit, you know. I've lost 3-4 stone. From nearly 18 stone, I'm kind of under 13 stone now. No diabetes medication, no heart medication, no cholesterol medication. Now, that's not saying I won't ever go back and begin, you know, but I mean, for now, I want to be kind of, you know, no one wants to be taking medication. So if you can, I just went to the chemist there a few years ago and handed in the prescription. He said, "Hey," he said, "come here." I said, "What?" He said, "I have people coming in here with prescriptions," he said, "and they're getting higher and higher doses." He said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Because your dosage is getting lower and lower and lower." And like, that is down to Men the Move and down to exercising and down to just putting in that bit of effort and even just talking with fellas, you know. It all helps. That's kind of my story. I hope you gain something from it, but that's it.
Oh man, Eugene. I think one of the things as well that from Eugene and Jim, like, you know, I said they were proactive. They looked at themselves and they kind of said, what do I need to do? That photo there that you can see Eugene in the middle, they're a band of brothers. I would see it now. It's one of my greatest achievements within my job is that they've become sustainable. And I think all of them would say they're not sporty guys who would have been GA lads or rugby lads or soccer lads and going out and playing, etc. But they're very like-minded. And there's been some terrible things that have happened in some of those guys' lives as well. And when it did happen, that social support from those around him was absolutely huge. And it's the same with Jim. And Jim's kind of saying everything that's happened on there. And as men, we're not very good at that. And I think that when we're putting ourselves out there with other people, it's really making a benefit on our physical and our mental and our social health. And I can't emphasize that enough. For you, if you're watching this and you're kind of looking across going, right, I would say reflect on where you're at. We do cycling programs, you know, we do walking programs. One of my buddies there a couple of weekends ago, he put himself a challenge of walking a whole greenway in Waterford. So, and he did it, set out on last Saturday, but he spent 4 months training, kind of just getting out there and walking. He was a fit guy, he played rugby, but it's a different kettle of fish for him playing a team sport and then making sure you're going to walk on your feet for kind of 6 hours. So he did it. That was his goal. And that made sure he got physically active. And he did it with 3 of his buddies on that kind of front, which is really important. But if you cut you know, it's looking across and going, what is that nudge? Put yourself outside your comfort zone, reflect and saying, right, will I do this on my own? If the answer is yes, and you want to do a Joe Wicks, because there's so much stuff that is out there on YouTube and different platforms and social media platforms, great. But if you need that little nudge, as Eugene and Jim have said, and you need that from a group, look across and see what you can do. And I think both Jim and Eugene, they dipped their toe in the water and they kind of said, well, I probably should be doing a bit of physical activity. And they went and they did it. Some of our guys, when they do programs with us and other sports partners across country, they come in, they go out. They come in, they go out. That's fine. But as long as we're making sure we recognize what you as an individual need to do to make sure you are the best version of yourself. Okay. There is support, you know, not from your family and everything else, but you need to identify what you want and what you need to do and then go out and get it. That's really, really important. Like, we've spoken a lot about Men in the Move, but even there, cycling, and like Eugene, again, during the summertime, you'd be out cycling the Greenway, and Jim, you're on the Greenway as well all the time, because in Waterford, we're exceptionally lucky. But it's just making sure you take that time. I find at the moment with Eugene, I don't like Zoom, as he said, like he's on computer screens all day long. I wouldn't do a Zoom at daytime because I'm spending ages on it. So what I try and do now is, for me, is I phone calls. I don't do Zoom. I do phone calls and I walk. So I have a walk and talk meeting. I try and do all my meetings with people socially. If you are in a group, socially distanced and whatever, making sure I'm walking with them. But if Eugene wants to Zoom with me or some of my work colleagues, it's no, I'm going to phone you and I'm going to walk. So I can get my 20, 30, 40 minutes of exercise in. So plan and look across at what your life is. Okay, that's really, really important. I'm just going to do one final video and I'm going to see, sorry, now I'm going to stop this share. Give me this is 30 seconds, ladies and gents. That's it. So here we go.
It's one thing I'm glad I joined the Men on the Move. I didn't know anything about it up to 8 weeks ago. It's one of the best things I've done in a long time. My excuse to get me arse up off the chair. And the variety of exercises I think are excellent. You won't get bored with them.
I think just there, I'm going to pause that quickly because that's Joe. He did the first session with us, and I said we do measure kind of things. But as Eugene said, like 10:53 is very fast for a mile anyway, but he knocked a minute in 39. But that waist circumference is absolutely massive. What we try and do as well with Men in the Move, and generally we try and give some nutrition advice, which Helen has spoken about before, which obviously from a cancer prevention can be really, really important as well. So that's vital to make sure that you are the best version of yourself. From my own perspective, as I said, I'll mention it again, just you get one body, you get one life, so make it the best you possibly can be. Look across at who's in your life and what you want to be as an individual. Jim and Eugene are two of many examples across the country of men who have, excuse the pun, grabbed it by the balls and said, no, I'm going to make a blooming difference here. I'm going to make a difference in my life and make sure I'm better. And I've got nothing but, I can be very proud of the two of them for what they've done within their lives, and they should be proud of themselves as well. But it is, if you need assistance, be in the group environment, go out and find it. Don't be sitting there in kind of 5 or 10 years and let your health just deteriorate from that front. So as we said, it's adding life to your years, not only years to your life. And that's really, really important. So Helen, that would be my final message to all the men. But as I said, sports partnerships are in every county across the country. Yeah. Touch base to them, kind of, and said, just mind yourselves. That's really important.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Eugene and Jim. I mean, your stories are so positive. They're so motivational. And Peter, the work you do obviously is grabbing. You know, the hook is there. There's one comment there online, like a lady saying, how do I get my husband to realize he's overweight and he needs to do something? I would imagine that's very common, because often it's a woman who's trying to push, the man forward or to make them realize that maybe there is a problem. But, maybe that's for another day. I know we're out of time, but I do think, I don't know if you want to answer that in any way, Peter, what should that person do?
I think it's very tough. I think it's a negative connotation. So if you go across to someone and saying you're overweight, you need to do something. I don't think that's the way to approach it, because straight away you're coming across saying, well, it's not aggressive, but it could be seen as that way. If you're approaching a different way of saying, even so, like, look, I'm always out. Like, how about, why don't you just go out and meet some of the guys? I've seen this program here. And a bit like Eugene kind of said, he didn't know it was that much physical activity. And I think the big thing for me is if you can get one of a man's friends to say it, I think that's probably a benefit. I'm not sure if Jim and Eugene want to pipe in with something on that front, but that's what we get a lot of wives who are very worried about their husbands. I usually, they get it, so I phoned them and said, oh, so someone said to me you might be doing this, etc., so I can speak to them. But try and put it as a positive. It's that social aspect. So Jim, do you want to jump in, or Eugene jump in there?
Yeah, I think on that, Peter, as well. And I can kind of understand where that partner is coming from, or that lady is, but maybe a challenge to do things together, to get things moving.
Yeah.
You know, I think that is a challenge, but it may be a workable challenge by starting to do things together, even if it's just a small walk.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And
Yeah, I know a lady who brought her husband off in a mini Caminos just to, off for a Saturday afternoon. But again, it just changed the way he looked at things. And he actually, Peter, he's joined the Men in the Move in Dungarvan.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is that has been extremely enjoyable. From our perspective, it's such a great message, isn't it? And it's so motivational, it's so positive. You've created something for yourselves, in telling your stories tonight. And I hope that everybody takes note of, how you've changed your lives. Really, really important. There was a comment there from a gent on Facebook, Seamus, saying, thank you both for sharing your stories. It has been incredible. So I think on that note, we will say thank you very much for your time tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we'll see you again sometime, and maybe in Men on the Move.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, thank you.